Hey, so welcome back to the show. Today, I want to talk to you about 5 things you can do, maybe 6, to have 2025 be absolutely fantastic for your real estate career. Now, I'm not going to say it's going to be 2021. 2021 was an anomaly. My buddy Jimmy Mackin refers to those years as the champagne and cocaine years of real estate. We're probably not going to see that again. I got Hector to laugh. That makes me happy. But I want to talk to you about some of the things that I know after, call it 75,000 hours of working with individuals just like you to help you get yourself ready and, most importantly, optimized to do the work in 2025. But I want to start by saying to you, as I get near closing out this year, 2024, one of the observations that myself and our coaches have had is there's basically 3 types of agents that are coming to us today. So 3 types of agents at all my events, 3 types of agents that are joining our programs, and they fall into 1 of 3 categories. The first category is the startup agent. Now, we would call this the new agent, the emerging agent, but I invest in a lot of companies. So I always think of a brand new agent as a startup, right? And what we know is the vast majority of startups don't make it. We know the vast majority of them don't make it because they don't prioritize revenue, right? They get enamored with their product instead of being enamored with their client and trying to figure out, how do I solve problems for my clients and help them so I can make as much money as possible to keep my business going. So the startup mode, first 5 years in the business. If you're watching right now, you're a startup. And again, we see the NAR numbers, 87% failure rate. But if I look broadly at the 34 million businesses, that the data that I've got for the US, you've got essentially 34 million businesses. 96% of them earn less than $1 million a year in revenue. And the failure rate is every 10 years, 90% of them turn over. So if you're in that category, this is the right show for you. Now, the second category, which is, I think, the largest category of agents, certainly from what I've seen on the road, doing events. And I think I've talked to, between webinars and, live events, about 15,000 people just in the last few weeks. I can tell you that the vast majority of them fall into a category that I refer to lovingly as stuck. Do you know someone who's stuck? And this is, by the way, these are great agents. She's a rock star. She wins trophies and plaques and gets recognized all the time, but she's been making the same amount of money year in, year out. And when I say stuck, what I'm really saying is there's no innovation, right? There's not a lot of excitement. There's not a lot of energy. There's not a lot of enthusiasm. It's a slugfest. It's a grind. She puts her head down, he puts his head down, and he just goes to work and sells houses. But there's some passion missing, if that makes sense. So I call that person stuck. Stuck because they're making the same amount of money year in and year out, and things don't seem to change. And they're not doing a lot of innovation, and there's not a lot of, let's just call it, passion for the business right now. And if you fall into that category, it's okay, because you're doing great, and it just takes a couple tweaks and adjustments. Maybe, just maybe, it's today's podcast. The third group, I nod to my father, right? I call them the superstars. And these are, the mega successful agents, the mega successful team leaders, the ones that really, they get recognized, on the Wall Street Journal Top 1000, America's Best, which is only about 17,000 agents in the US of the 1.5 million. They're the absolute pinnacle of success. And yet, would you be shocked to hear that when I sit down with them, because so many of those people are our coaching clients and friends, they all say the same thing when I'm 3 types of agents. They all go, no, I'm not a superstar, man. I'm stuck, right? I've been selling, $500 million in sales for 3 years in a row, and I want to get back to innovation. I want to get back to growth. I want to do more. So it's interesting. So as I say that, if you're watching this on YouTube or wherever you're watching or listening to this today, if you can make a comment, I'd just be curious, which category do you find yourself in? All 3 are great. There's no right or wrong. Don't have ego play into this. Are you a startup? Are you stuck? Or are you a superstar? Put that in the comments, because it'll help frame what we do today. So as I mentioned, this is my favorite time of the year, right? The fourth quarter, when we get to start writing our plans and thinking about our goals and thinking about how we're going to make the next year different. So I wrote down for you 5 ways, and I actually think I finished with 6 different ways that you can make 2025 your best year in real estate, because I don't count 2021 anymore. So here's the first thing. If you're looking broadly at the North American market, and again, for my friends in Europe and Australia and South Africa and all throughout Asia that are watching this, I don't get as much access to the data. So if you've got the data, send it to me, because here's what we're seeing in North America, that everybody is forecasting a 12.5% lift in transactions, a 12.5% lift in transactions, because of the obvious, right? Because of where the interest rates have been, whether you're in Canada or in the US. And as those rates begin to ease, and what everyone's saying is going to happen in 2025, right? That we could see rates in US in the 5s. When that happens, the acceleration of new properties coming on the market and buyers that have just been waiting, this enormous amount of demand is there. So we think the 12.5% lift is pretty normal, and should be expected. But the note that I wrote down for you is, are you going to settle for a 12.5% lift because the market got better? Like, is that your ambition? Are you going to go from startup or stuck and say, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ride the wave of the market. If the market gets 12.5% better, I can pretty much just rest on my laurels, do all the same stuff, and I should do, 10 to 12.5% more. If you're watching this, I know that's not you. I know you're already like, no, Ferry, tell me what I got to do. What I'm telling people is, at the minimum, I want you to set an intention to match the market. At a minimum, I want you to add an additional 12.5 on top of that. So I'm looking for a minimum 25% increase in your transactions, in your volume, in your gross commission income, and most importantly, a 25% increase in your profit, in your take-home cash after taxes or before taxes. You get to decide. That's what I'm looking for. Now, I did write down 25 should be the minimum. 30 is great. 40 is great. I've had so many clients reach out to me and say, Tom, I did all of what I did in 2022, in 2023, I did all of it by July, right? I listened to what you said about the election cycle and what was going to happen here in the US. And you were right. I'm on pace to do 40% more, 50% more, 70% more. I love those goals. But I want to say to you, as you think about your goal for 2025, there's one or two types of people that set goals. There's people that when they set a goal, it has to be so realistic and so doable that they know they're going to hit it. Is that you? If that's you, wonderful. On the flip side, the other group, people like myself, we set an ambitious goal. We go for something we're striving for. We go for something we've got to fight for, and we almost never hit the goal. But we stretch outside of our comfort zone, and we can live with the sort of emotional disparity of not achieving the goal. Like, it's actually okay because we're striving and pushing ourselves to do more. Now, you can hear my enthusiasm around the way that I set goals. I say, wouldn't it be great if we can do 500% more business in a year? My team looks at me like I'm completely insane. And I'm like, 125? And they're like, how about 30, right? So you can see I've got this balance, certainly in my own company, between, how many of my team wants to set their goals. Now I want to set my goals. There's no wrong answer. I guess the only one would be not having a goal. But you're watching this show. You're one of my friends. Like, you and I both know this is how we roll. I don't care how you do it. What I care is that you have a goal, that it's very clear, you know why you want to achieve it. And then I'm not going to go through the business planning stuff on this session, but I will tell you, we'll have other shows where we break down the 6 or 7 different components of a business plan. So you can ultimately get down to what is your daily number? What are the things you got to do on a daily, weekly basis, all the marketing stuff. So know that that's coming. But if you want to have 2025 be an extraordinary year for you, the thing I would say is set a meaningful goal that fires you up, that makes you a little bit nervous, that you're going to have to push. And please don't have it be 12.5% more business than you did this year, because that's just going to happen automatically. So that's number one. Number two, I wrote down, I want you to consider it's time to reimagine. And by reimagine, I mean it's time to rethink, reimagine, dream about how you package the services that you provide to both buyers and sellers. Matter of fact, in the comments, I would love to know, when was the last time that you surveyed your clients to find out, like past clients, people that have worked with you, especially recently, what was most important to them in the transaction? What did I do above and beyond that you were surprised by or you were pleased by? What did I say I was going to do and what did I deliver and how did you feel about that experience? By surveying your customers, you begin to get a sense of the words that they use versus the words that we use. We have a tendency to, use all the nomenclature of real estate. And, we say, I've inside of the MLS. Well, every time I talk to my friends that are outside of real estate that only buy a house every 10 years, they're like, Major League Soccer, right? The MLS, right? Like, what are you talking about? So, we remove the words that we use and you replace it with like human speak, consumer speak. So that'd be one thought. The second thought going around this reimagine is, I think it's time for us to repackage and reposition the value we deliver to a buyer, the value we deliver to a seller. Now, you could say for the obvious reason, because it's going to be highly competitive next year, all the agents that sat on the sidelines in 2024 that, instead of selling their one or two houses, like they were just out of the business, right? We know the numbers, like half the people in real estate that have a license didn't sell a home last year. I was looking at the numbers in Toronto, Canada recently, on pace for about 68 million transactions with 75,000 agents. And I was just up in Toronto with a whole bunch of agents sell 20, 30, 40, 80, 100, 15, 9. So clearly, right, there's a big gap of those agents that aren't producing. But when the market gets better, they come back. They come back and they start doing one or two more transactions. They get, Lucy, their neighbor, to list with them when they should have listed with you. And you lost because you showed up, you thought you had it, you didn't deliver a lot of value, you didn't show them the case studies, you didn't give them all the reasons why it's so compelling that they don't list with their buddy who's probably just going to discount their fee and say, I'm going to put it in the MLS, the market's hot and it's going to sell, right? So all of that, and by the way, you use the same thing in your marketing. So I'm not saying any of the things that I'm going to share right now in terms of repackaging and repositioning are the things that you need to do. I know naturally we go to, do I need a new headshot? My response is, if you don't look like that anymore, then the answer is yes. Do you need a new logo? I don't think you need your initials done differently. That's nice to have. I'm talking about you're sitting in front of a buyer or seller and you're talking about this is what I do and how I do it. And what it does is it creates a compelling offer to work with you, a reason to work with you, and maybe, just maybe, at or above the typical fees in your marketplace. So it was fun. I was playing around with like Tom AI, which is one of our AI solutions. You might be on Perplexity or ChatGPT or Claude or whatever you choose to use. But you could very quickly go inside there and say, I'm a real estate professional and I'm looking to create degrees of separation, a reason to work with me and preferably pay a higher than average fee in my marketplace. What are some things that I should be thinking about? Well, here's some of the stuff that immediately came up in Tom AI. Show your reach on social. I was looking at the recent Zillow consumer report, like what's important to them and how many of them are finding their agents on social. But then I think about some of the work that we've done inside of our work and listing leads, where we're showing social media strategies that are getting leads, listing opportunities, buyers, the email that you can send every time you go out on an appointment that says, I'm about to go meet with a potential seller in this area. And what we know is homes like this, because of the location, generally sell very quickly and oftentimes with multiple offers. If you would like to know the details once I lock this listing in, simply reply VIP and I'll put you on the VIP list and send it to you right away. And then you look at so many of our clients that have taken that email and then turned it into social media and created basically an Instagram reel with the same exact thing. Hey, I'm driving right now to an appointment. I'm about to list a home in this area, a little green screen of that. And you're doing this, you're sharing the same exact email strategy. And you're like, just type in yes if you want to be on the VIP list. And again, you walk into the appointment and you're like, I've already generated 10 yeses. I sent this email out yesterday. I already got 9 replies. That kind of social marketing case study, degree of separation that shows how immediately you can be effective for a client. That's what I'm talking about in terms of degrees of separation, reimagining, repackaging, repositioning our services. Obviously, I wrote down the size and strength of your database. You know, the fact that you can walk in and say, I've got 11,000 people on my phone. I've got 4,000 people inside my phone. And the moment I'm going to immediately, right? Like that kind of power as well. I wrote down number 3, consider 3 tiers of marketing services, including potentially 2 to 3 tiers of your fees. Now, it's interesting. My brother, Patrick Ferry, shout out to Patrick. Patrick and his wife, Carly, sell real estate down in San Diego. And when he was, going up against a lot of different high, rock star agents in his marketplace, he started noticing that everybody's marketing plan was essentially the same. Some people would say, here's the 43 things I do. Here's the 87 things I do. Some had a beautiful binder, presentation, blah, blah, blah. But it was basically, I do all this and here's my fee. And he knows whether it's the illusion of choice that we want to provide or just simply giving somebody options. He created 3 tiers of marketing. So he could say, I charge this fee, or this fee based upon the services that we provide. Again, giving people choices. Here's the minimum in the marketplace, right, for a listing on the list side. And here's slightly above and here's more above. And then he would lay out, here's the 3 different tiers. And I know many of our coaching clients love this. It's inside of a Loom. If you haven't seen it, if you're watching this, I would go inside a Loom, search Patrick Ferry, 3 tiers. You're going to find that piece. All he was doing was saying, I acknowledge that not everybody needs a 4K 7-camera shoot drone video to get their home sold. Not everybody needs that. But if I'm going to do that, not everybody needs the mega open house where I invite every real estate agent in the marketplace and my entire database to show up and we have, 300, 400 people there. Not everybody needs that, right? Not everybody needs an ad in the Wall Street Journal, but certain clients are going to want that. And for that, like any other agency you would hire, I hire agencies all the time to help us work on projects. They're going to give us a tiered structure that says, hey, we're going to do all this stuff for this. And then if you want this, it's more. And if you want this, it's more. That's normal every day in business. I don't know if that's the right one for you. You decide. Number 4, this one should be a no-brainer. And there's obviously tens of things you're going to do when you go inside, Tom AI or ChatGPT or Perplexity. I love Perplexity, by the way. Did anybody see Spaces? Heck, did you see they just added Spaces, which is like files inside of Perplexity? It's bananas. All right. Case studies. When you look at modalities of how people make decisions, whether it is towards pleasure or away from pain, whether it's internal or external, I know what I know, or I do what everybody else does, internal, external. One of them is also sameness versus difference. And a lot of people will make decisions because they're looking for the same result that others have achieved or the same thing they've had in the past, where others will say, I'm looking for something different every single time. I could go to the same restaurant over and over again. I don't care, right? It's not my last meal. My wife loves different. Every new restaurant we have to go, we got to try it. She doesn't want to go back to the same places. It's just it's one of our 5 different modalities of making decisions. So I love case studies because it validates the sameness person. It also validates that you know exactly what you're doing. I think about longtime client, shout out to Gary Gold in Beverly Hills. So Gary, years ago, he and another friend, Mauricio, we coach Farah, his daughter, and they basically listed the Playboy Mansion, let's call it for $200 million. What he did on that appointment was he reverse engineered the listing presentation. Instead of saying, let me make all these promises, he went back and said, let me give you examples, case studies, of other properties like yours that we were able to market effectively, repackage, reposition, and ultimately get sold. And it was essentially, he reversed the order of the presentation and said, let me show you what it's like when it's already sold. Let me give you the proof that I know what I'm doing. And Gary, if you're watching, we should do another podcast because the one we did on luxury was bananas and we should do it again. So back to the point. How many case studies do you have for the geographic farm that you work? How many case studies do you have for condos, for ranch style homes, for new construction properties? How many case studies do you have for expired listings, which are certainly, we see a little rush of expireds. I think Ren Jones told me recently, in the US at least, we've had 100% more expireds this year than we had last year. Interesting, right? So how many different types of properties have you sold where you can give an example of a case study where you say, they came to me with this problem, We executed this plan. We got this many eyeballs here. We got this many people through. We had this many offers. We successfully negotiated. And you kind of lay it out like maybe on a 1 or 2 page, beautiful display. And what this shows is that, hey, you got a ranch style property? I've sold ranch style properties. Here's how I do it. By the way, I've also sold, multifamily, and here's a lakefront, here's a this, here's a that. It doesn't make a difference. As long as you have a bunch of case studies, you're showing them, you know what you're doing. And again, you're creating more value, which everybody keeps talking about. How are you going to create more value? So that's number 2 on my list. If you want to have 2025 be bananas, I was looking for a banana, but I don't have one. There's no doubt this one's going to be big for you. So I wrote down very quickly for you. If it's not in your schedule, it doesn't exist. How many times have you heard me say that? I hope your coach has said it to you. If it's not in your schedule, it doesn't exist. But on the flip side of that, I learned a long time ago, yes, I want to get everything inside my schedule, but I also understand that old phrase, work expands to the time, work expands to the time allotted. So if I just put all my work into my schedule and then I leave all these openings for more work, you know what I'll do? I will work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I love my business. I love my clients. I love doing this stuff. Saturday, I was leaving Las Vegas and we had meetings on Friday, decided to spend the night, my wife and I, and hang out and just, had a nice dinner and drinks and fun, did a little gambling, made actually a little bit of money, which was shocking. Leave early the next morning. And a client had texted me about a very specific, hey, I'm working on this marketing piece. I'd love to get your insight. And boom, I call him at Saturday at 8:00 in the morning. He's like, Ferry, you're calling me. I'm like, I love you. I love my business. I love my clients. I could work all the time. But happy wife is happy life. And having some, peace, some outside of the business energy is important to me. So here's what my wife and I do every year. We take one of those old wall calendars and we map out the following. All of our holidays, all of our vacations, all of our couples getaways, right? All the time we want to go here, there, etc. When are we going to be in Orange County? How often are we going to be in Dallas? Are we going to spend some time in Jackson Hole? Can we go to Europe and go, do a little tour over there? We get everything inside there. Holidays, anniversaries, everything. And what I'm looking to do is secure all the personal energy and fun before I then just bury myself with work. Does that make sense? Now, I don't know how you do it, but I know most people, you know what they do? They run themselves ragged. They get tired and sick, and then they say, I need a day off. I have just found, no different from a professional athlete, I can run really hard. I can play all 4 quarters, but then I need a break. I can play 5, 6, 7 weeks in a row really intensely, but then I need a break. So I make sure that I'm scheduling those breaks to give me optimum time to replenish, to re-energize, to step away from everything, to get out of the middle of the forest and pull back and take a look. And then I go back to work. And I would challenge you to do the same. If you want 2025 to be an extraordinary year, we know you can't just work all the time. You've got to carve out that time to bring yourself some peace, to give yourself some energy, to be with the people that you love, to travel, to see the world, to do the things you love to do. Pickleball, golf, whatever it is, I don't care, but it's got to be in your calendar. Now, of course, the next part of this, I wrote down the following is once I do that, then I'm going to go through and say, okay, how many open houses do I have in my plan for 2025? And I'm going to put up Saturday, Sunday, over and over. I'm going to schedule it all inside there. Am I doing, 2-hour open houses, 4-hour? I'm going to do 2 a day. I'm going to do 1 a day, but I'm going to put the whole thing in my calendar. And I realize, okay, I only have, when I'm done with this, 38 weekends, 32 weekends. So I've got to optimize those open houses. Now, I don't know what the properties are going to be yet, but I want to have it in my calendar. Then, should you have in your schedule 4 to 5 days a week, 90 to 120 minutes of appointment setting time? I don't like the word prospecting. I've been saying this for as long as I can remember. When I think of prospecting, like growing up in California, I think of dirty old men by the river, like trying to find the gold. Like you and I know where the gold is. It's in your phone, right? The gold is everywhere. But if you don't schedule time to do appointment setting, not prospecting, appointment setting, then you know what happens? Every now and then you make phone calls and you get this rush of like, oh, I made like 25 phone calls. Well, I've seen people make 25 phone calls with an auto dialer. It takes like 15 minutes. They talk to nobody. They get no leads. They get no business, but they're like, I made 25 phone calls. I was productive. No, you weren't. No, you weren't. No, you made 25 dials, auto dials at that. You didn't even have to do this. So I want to see every day, 4 or 5 days a week, your call, 90 to 120 minutes of appointment setting time in your calendar. We know 9 to 11 and 4 to 6 are the optimal times. We know that 9 to 11 is the time when you'll actually do it because you'll get busy or you'll get tired from 4 to 6 and you won't do it. So 9 to 11 in your calendar, 4 to 5 days a week. The next one I wrote down is you better have a Saturday morning follow-up session. So many appointments get scheduled. You know it. I know it, even via text. Saturday morning, because everybody's home, everybody's chilling. They're thinking about what's next. They're thinking about, am I going to go see an open house? Hey, what do we need to do to get the house ready to put it on the market? You've got to schedule Saturday mornings to be up early at your office, on the phones, booking appointments. Should be in your calendar for the entire year. I wrote down, additionally, all of your weekly meetings. Your coaching session should be set for the entire year, right? The events you plan to go to should be inside there. Your marketing meeting should be inside there. Your client follow-up, clients under contract follow-ups, everything should be inside your schedule. So when I see you at an event, I'm going to say, show me your calendar, show me your phone. And if I look inside your phone and your phone looks a whole lot like that, I don't know if you guys can see that, but it's just, my day-to-day jam-packed with things that have been in my calendar, in many cases, for the last year, then you know what happens? I just have to wake up every day and follow my schedule. I just wake up every day and I follow my schedule because the cardinal sin of trying to have a really big year is waking up and saying, what am I going to do today? What should I do this week? That is the wrong question. Instead, how can I fulfill on my schedule today with inspired action, loving on the people I'm talking to, moving the ball forward, and generating as much revenue as I can? That's a much better question to ask yourself than, I got a lot of free time. What should I do today? Because we know we took you should, by the way, there's a report that the National Association of Realtors put out. And essentially it's like, these are the duties of a real estate professional. So we took the entire report. We put it into ChatGPT. I think it was when we did this right before the summit. Yeah, it was in ChatGPT. Wasn't Perplexity yet. And we put it inside there and we said, can you please break down these activities and tell me which ones are administrative and which ones are revenue generating? Would you be shocked to hear? 92% of it administrative and 8% revenue. If you want to have 2025 be bananas, if you want to have 2025 be so good that when you walk in your bank, they go, congratulations, like you are killing it. If you want to be moved to the private client services of your bank because you're depositing so much money into the bank, if you want that, you can't have only 8% of your time in revenue generating activities. You got to be more like 70% of my time in revenue generating, 30% in client services. Think about it. Back on this same note, we all know how this business works. When you're down here and your pipeline is low, you spend all your time working leads, marketing, opportunities, open houses. And then you get up here and you're like, I'm a rock star. Look at all these deals. I've got 2 active listings. I got 3 in escrow. I am making money. And then what is the first thing you stop doing when you get up here? What's the first thing you stop doing? Making your calls, doing your follow-up, doing your marketing, moving things forward. No, now you're in client service mode. I got to help the clients. I got to, make a move. I got to get this done. Got to get that. I got to close the escrow. Got to manage this. And you stop doing all the things that got you there. So you go work your face off, get successful, stop doing everything that got you to become successful. And then you drop down again. And then you start it over and you drop down again and you start it over and you drop down again. Now I know by putting it in your calendar every day, 4 or 5 days a week, plus Saturday follow-ups, you're going to be more inclined to follow the schedule and do the things you know you're supposed to do, even through maybe just a little guilt. But that's number 3. All right, number 4. Number 4, probably could have started with this one, and I know I'm giving you a lot to think about here, and I hope you're enjoying this podcast. I just love a new year. I love, my mentor, Mike Vance, would use this, I think it was Latin. He would say, tabula rasa, clean slate, a new beginning. I love that. But the difference is you're starting 2025 with all of your experience, all of your wisdom, all of your knowledge, all of your insight. But if you're stuck, or you're a startup, or you're a superstar, and you declare that you're also stuck because you want to grow, you know that number 4 is the point for you. What I know is motive matters. Motive matters. Motive matters. What is your motive for action? That is the whole game. So if I want to do something really big, I'll give you an example. Shout out to one of my coaches. She coaches me. Her name is Dr. Julie Gerner. Matter of fact, I have a coaching session coming up in about an hour. Julie and I were having this conversation about an ambitious goal that I have for 2025. And she said to me 2 things. She's like, Tom, in order for you to do that, you have to go back to being the guy, the maniacal, hard-charging, revenue-focused, every single day, solve problems, be your best. Like you have to work with just an insane amount of energy like you did when you started your company 21 years ago. Are you prepared to do that? And I was like, oh, it hit me like a ton of bricks because I've been doing this for like almost 35 years, which is insane to think about it. 54, going to be 55 next year. It's crazy for me. I started when I was like 18. Like it's nuts for me to think that I've been in this industry for that long. And yet she was right. Am I willing to go back and be maniacal again? Am I willing to go back and say, forget the fact that I've already established what I've established. I am just going to go pound like crazy. Now, as you're hearing this, you might be saying, Ferry, I see you traveling. You work pretty hard. I do. But there's a different energy when you're starting something new. There's a different energy when you're starting something new. And I would argue that energy is like a requirement, but it's also, you've got to prioritize your time and your energy in such a disciplined way. And I say that to you because if you really want to make 2025 like geometrically better, if you want to really ring the cash register, if you really want to make the money that you deserve to pay off all the debts, to put yourself in a better financial situation, to pay for your daughter's wedding, or send your kids to college, or pay off all your debts and just be in a financial place where you're like, oh, I'm just in a good place. That can happen in 2025, but not operating the way you did in 2024. What she was saying to me was, you're going to have to shift. You're going to have to make a change. So I was reminded of, I think it was like the second time I was working with Tony Robbins like a bazillion years ago. And one of the audio programs, the assignment essentially was to write down, I'm just kind of going through my head and trying to think of which program it was, to write down the 10 positive benefits of you working your face off and achieving these goals. The 10 positive benefits of you doing the work, changing your schedule, being more disciplined, making the calls 4 to 5 days a week, Saturday morning follow-up, booking appointments like crazy. Like, what are the 10 positive benefits? And you want to get really clear on, am I internally motivated or externally motivated? Do I move towards pleasure or away from pain? Because we got both for you on this one. And do I really want things to be the same, or do I want things to be different in 2025? So I know when I got off that session with Julie and I hopped on an airplane the next day, I started listing out like, okay, if we do this, then what's going to happen? Like, what are the results? And what are those results going to do? And how am I going to help more people? And how is that going to change my family dynamic? And like, I was looking at all these like positive benefits of doing the work, right? Of making the change, of adding these new disciplines. And then you got to do the flip side. The flip side is, what are the 10 negative consequences for not taking action? Now, there's no right or wrong, positive or negative. I find when I need to do something big, I'm going to lean on the negative consequences. You'll see me at events where I'll say, hey, I got like $10,000 or $5,000, says you can't book 100 listing appointments in the next like 10 months. And I know for those people, sometimes it's oh my God, I get 10 grand from Tom Ferry. But let's be clear. Someone that books 100 listing appointments, they're going to make hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. So that $10,000 check is nothing to them. I actually think it's not the $10,000. It's actually the pain of having to show up to the event, having not done it. Like, that's the pain that drives them potentially. Or it is the pleasure of getting a big fat check from Tom Ferry for 10 grand. Either one is fine. But I'm challenging you as you think about 2025. When you really think about 2025, what are the painful consequences if you don't follow through. If you have children, I don't know if there's any more painful things in life than telling your kids no. No, like no specifically, we can't afford it. No, right? Like that's a pretty painful situation to be in. On the flip side, what is just joyous is to be able to say to your siblings, or in my case, my wife's siblings and my siblings, hey, I rented a beautiful house in Palm Desert, on me, come and let's hang out for 3 or 4 days and just have a good time together, right? To be able to do things like that. And like it's what ultimately is going to drive you. Like what's going to give you the passion, the purpose, the energy to make the behavioral changes. Like if you tell me like, okay, Tom, here's my goals, right? Here's my goals. But if your behaviors are over here, you're not going to get there. So if you're listening to me, I've got a hand pointing straight and I've got a hand pointing to the right. We need to line those two up. And the way we line those two up is we get really clear on the benefits and the consequences, because that's how I'm going to, change my behaviors, because I'm going to do more in most cases, as Tony Robbins made his entire career, to avoid pain than I will to gain pleasure. So I want you to do that. Now, my little sub note for you is you need to create a lot of accountability around the behaviors in 2025. Like what are the behavioral changes? So if you had kids, you can have some fun and you'd say, look, it's in my calendar every day from 9 to 11 to do appointment setting. I have an ambitious goal to schedule one appointment every day, 4 days a week when I do it, plus on Saturdays. So I want to schedule 4 to 5 appointments every week. Every time I book 4 to 5 appointments, you get this prize. It's like Pavlov's dog. You know what? They are going to love it, and your kids will hold you accountable. Your manager can hold you accountable. Your coach can hold you accountable. But I find the people that we're closest to are the ones that we don't want to let down. So maybe, just maybe, extend your accountability, add your accountability, create a situation where the people around you, right, are like, yeah, because they also gain benefit. I remember my client, Christina Martinez, longtime client. She was the number 1 agent in the world for C21 for a long time in San Jose, California. She was like in a little bit of a lull. She was stuck at like, I don't know, $8 or $9 million a year in GCI when I was working with her. We became number 1. It wasn't enough for her. And I remember just having these long conversations, like, what's going to drive you? What's going to make you like want to get up and go after it every single day? And at the end of the day for her, it was her church. Like that's what mattered most to her. Christine, if you're watching, I love you. And I still have that giant eagle that you gave me. It's a magical piece. And I think about you often. So check this out. I said to her, why don't you make a public declaration about something you're going to do that's really big for the church? So she thought about it. We worked on it. It was like probably 60 days before she got it. And then she called me and she said, I got it, coach. I'm going to buy the land next to the church. It's not available for sale, but I'm going to get that land and I'm going to build like a community center there, like a YMCA, and I'm going to donate the whole thing to the church. And I was like, now that is an ambitious goal. Like, okay, so we got to take it one step further then. I think you should go tell everybody in the congregation your goal. And she was like, but yes, but see, that's the accountability. That's the hook. So we planned it out and she raised her hand one day and said, Pastor, I want to share something with the church. I've got under contract the land next door and I'm going to build a community center and I'm donating it to the kids of the church. So the kids in this area have a safe place to play in the afternoons. And you can imagine thousands of people at the church. Yay, Christina. And I think about like 14 agents that were at that church quit and found a new church. Now her goal wasn't to get every referral out of the church. It certainly helped. It was helpful. Her goal was to put her butt on the line and really ensure that she actually took action, because every Saturday and Sunday when she was at church, guess what people asked? How's it coming along? How you doing? Hey, we noticed this. Or you have the plans done? Oh, we see you're breaking ground. And I remember being invited to the cutting ceremony. It was magical. Now, that may be super outlandish for you. Maybe it's just say to your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your cat, your dog, your best pal, when I do this, we're going to go on a trip and everything's covered by me. And just that little extra edge of accountability, you will do more for others in most cases than you will for yourself. All right, let's go to the last two. Number 5, you got to break down the goal into quarterly, monthly, weekly, goals. So quarterly, I want you to think about, the cyclicality of the sales cycle, if you will, cyclicality of the sales cycle. You know what I mean? January, February, March, getting it going, spring market, it hits April, May, June, July, August, September, and then it slows down again. So I always tell people, you should be setting quarterly goals. Like, what do I want to accomplish in the next 90 days, in the next 3 months? So if you're in the Northeast where transactions are slower in the fourth quarter and the first quarter, and they just go like bonkers in the spring and summer months, then maybe you set your goal of, hey, I want to be at 15% of my goal for the year, closed and pending by the end of the first quarter. And then I want to do 35 and 35 and then 10 at the end as an example. Or I wrote down 15, 30, 30, 25, whatever the numbers are. You want to be realistic about if there is a curve in your marketplace. If you're in some of the southern states, the sand states in the US, then it might be different. If you're in Toronto, Canada, it's absolutely going to be different because summertime, New York City, the market slows down, where in most of the countries, it actually picks up. You have to know your market, plan your quarterly goals appropriately, get them up in visual. The next one is you got to have a monthly goal for how many new appointments, how many new listings, how many open escrows, how many new buyer contracts, lay it all out. Be super clear on everything you want to accomplish and get it up in visual to scoreboard it. We know when you set a goal, that's one thing. That's awesome. When you know what you have to do to get there, we'll do that in the business plan. That's awesome. But when you scoreboard it, now you're like, hey, it's the 15th of the month. We're slightly behind our goal. We got to put the pedal to the metal. I got to make more calls, book more appointments, do more follow-ups, see if I can get these listings sold. Like, everything creates a sense of urgency when it's up in visual and everybody can see it. And then of course, you want to have your weekly goals. Now, the one caveat that I would add is have a quarterly, monthly, and weekly goal for profit. Yes, profit. Whatever we set our intentions on, we get more of. So if all you're thinking about is just appointments and transactions, you'll get appointments and transactions. But maybe you'll discount your fees next to nothing and have no money, or you'll overspend on everything and have no profit. So let's also have a profit goal. Like in business, we would call it your EBIT, right? Your earnings before interest, taxes, and depreciation, that's EBITDA. You would have a goal like that in business to say, at the end of every month, at the end of every quarter being better, I want to have a profitability of X. Now, you could even go one step further and say, but I want dividends or free cash flow of Y. Now, you know what's interesting? When you start to declare free cash flow, like how much cash I can take out of the business, that's when you really start making more money. When you just focus on doing deals and helping buyers and sellers, which is the mechanism that gets us there, but you don't talk about profitability. You don't talk about free cash flow. You don't talk about like savings or debt reduction or money that I can then reinvest in my business, or, hey, pay my taxes quarterly and not be freaked out one time a year. You start doing all that stuff. You know what happens? You make and keep more money. I want that for you, but I can't want it more than you. All right. Last one, number 6. I think I talked about it a little bit, so maybe it's not even a full point, but that is, make sure you also get all your personal and all your professional development, your company's convention, right? Your company's big, launch of the new year, a Tom Ferry event, whoever else you go to event. Get all that stuff in your calendar, because again, it gives us life. It gives us energy. I think of the old analogy of like having a Hot Wheel track. And if you remember ever having a Hot Wheel track, heck, did you ever have the Hot Wheel track with the engine in it? Right? So the car would like do a loop-de-loop, it'd spin around and do its whole thing, and then it'd start to slow down and it gets to that engine and boom, it fires off again. That's going to a Tom Ferry event. That's going to your company convention, right? It's getting that juice and that energy flowing again. So that is a wrap. That's what I want to talk to you about today. 5, let's call it 5.5 different things that you can do to ensure that 2025 is going to be a bananas year for you. So I want to know in the comments, what was the standout point for you, and what else do you know you need to do to make 2025 extraordinary? Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you always. If you haven't liked, subscribed, I probably should have said that to you earlier, but that's all good. So do all that stuff, and then I'll see you on the next show. Thanks so much for watching.